Hello and welcome to Marketing Speak. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, and today it's my pleasure to have Julie Hansen with us. Julie is a virtual selling expert and author of the Amazon bestseller, Look Me in the Eye, Using Video to Build Relationships with Customers, Partners, and Teams. A former actor, Julie brings a unique blend of on-camera and sales experience to her selling on video workshops and training programs. Julie, it's so great to have you on the show.
Great to be here, Stephan.
So let's first of all start with your origin story. How did you end up specializing in video for marketing? And I know there's a story arc through the acting world. So let's start there.
Yes, it definitely was an entree through acting. Like most actors, I started out in theater. You do a lot of stage work, and it's very much like face-to-face interaction. You get to read your audience, right? You can see when things land, when they don't, and you feed off that energy. And so, we have honed our face-to-face skills our entire life, so that's fairly natural. And I did that for a couple years, and then I had a chance to audition for a small film. And I just went in, not anticipating would be much different, except they'd have a camera on. And of course, I got in there, and they had had me slate, say your name, and speak, and I just was like a deer in headlights, right? Looking at the camera, and I'm like, oh my gosh, do I just stare at the camera? Do I look at the other person? What do I do with my hands? They feel so unnatural. It was not a good audition. After about 30 seconds, they said, okay, thank you. We'll be in touch. Of course, they were not in touch. And I did not get that role, much to not my surprise. And I found that what most actors do when they're going to transition from stage to film or television or video is they take on camera training, right? They take the skills classes so that they can communicate in the same way. They can make those adaptations to communicate effectively through the camera. And so that's what I did, and it really was so important. I don't think I would have gotten a part until I did that, because I just was really floundering in front of the camera. And so when the pandemic struck and I saw these sellers and marketers trying to, suddenly going on camera and getting all the technology and tools, but not really have an understanding of how we need to adapt ourselves and our behavior and how people read things on their screen, I thought, wow, this is something I learned, and I can certainly help pass on to the business world.
Yeah. So then you ended up, when did your book come out, and how did that come about compared to just doing workshops and working one-on-one with clients privately?
Yeah, so I had been working with sales teams and marketers and entrepreneurs on presentation skills and communicating and pitching and for many years. And of course, that sort of died down after the pandemic. And I took the time to put together some videos, which became the Selling on Video Masterclass, which is, how do you make eye contact? How do you read body language? What do you do with your body, right? How do you use your face to support what you're saying? And then I started coaching all these different individuals and different, we're using video for all different purposes, whether it's sending recordings, whether it's having face-to-face meetings. And out of that, I heard all their frustrations and concerns, like, well, gosh, I get in front of the camera and I'm just, I can't look at it. It just feels like I'm looking at nothing, and I'm really flat, and I can't get my personality out there. And so I got to work with them through all their issues. And so out of that came the book, and I tried to cover all these questions that people who've never worked in front of the camera before have. That we somehow in business we just assume that people are going to figure it out, and which is crazy, because there's a whole industry that's already figured it out that we haven't tapped into.
Yeah, that's a great point. And so if we started with some of the tips and tricks to do well on camera, maybe we start with the mistakes. Like some of the biggest mistakes people have, the looking down, for example. if they're
Mm-hmm.
on camera, let's say on a Zoom call, and they're looking at another person and they're looking down, that's breaking eye contact. That doesn't look good, and it probably doesn't lead to the sale. So, uh,
Right.
what are some of the big mistakes that you see time and time again?
Yeah, yeah. That's probably the biggest and the most damaging mistake, because if you think about it, eye contact is, it conveys friendliness, it conveys openness, trustworthiness. We trust people more that make a direct gaze than those that sort of avert their eyes. That indicates, we're up to something, we're suspicious or guilty or
Yeah,
lack confidence.
and
So
and eyes are the windows to the soul.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think we are the only mammals that have, the whites of the eyes around the iris. And so y- we can tell precisely where people are looking. So oftentimes people say, "Well, I'm close to looking at my camera," but it's a very different experience. We're very adept at reading the precision of the location people are looking at. And if you're just looking slightly over my, over my right shoulder, it's like, it's just off-putting. That's, we're experts at this face to face, and so we have to strive for that kind of precision and connection on camera to get that same experience. A lot of times people say, "Well, gosh, everyone knows I'm looking at the screen. I'm looking at their face," as if that's makes it okay. And that's really, we're applying logic to it, right? And humans are building relationships based on emotion, not necessarily logic. And frankly, our customers are not going to make excuses for us. Our mom might say, "Oh, I know that she's looking at me on her screen," but my customer isn't going to do that, right? All they know is it feels like you're not paying attention, you're not that interested, and those are not qualities that are going to help build that relationship or drive that sale.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what about if you're pre-recording a video? It's
Mhm.
just you doing a selfie video for your marketing landing page,
Mhm.
and I know I find that if I'm not speaking to someone, if I'm just speaking to dead air, I'll keep backspacing myself, keep editing myself, keep recording over and over again because it's not perfect, and that just drives me bonkers. And so I hate shooting video, at least if nobody is on the other end. So is that something that you come across? Is that pretty typical?
Oh, that's so common. You described it very well. It's such a different experience to talk to the camera and not have anyone there. I mean, that is, at its baseline, that is acting, right? You are an actor, and actors train for that. They don't just turn on the camera and they have this natural ability to do it. And so I think it's crazy that we think people are going to pick this up. It really is a learned skill. And to your point, you mentioned a couple things that I think really inhibit people. And the first one is this idea that it's got to be perfect. And that's not necessarily what people are looking for. Like, I don't expect people sending me a marketing video unless it's a super polished campaign or something. It would be odd if there was a big, mistake in it. But I don't expect outreach to be perfect. But I expect it to feel like you're talking to me, right? That's what's going to connect me to you. So the idea of, talking to someone, we're always talking to someone through the camera. And that is one thing that people can tell, is when you're talking to the camera and you just have no one in mind, you're just talking to, the ether. And not only do you have a less intimate gaze, and everything about you is more generalized and broad, but you're also, very disconnected from, the passion, right, of why you're having this conversation. You're just saying words at that point. And so
Yeah.
having a real specific idea in mind of, who you're talking to, being able to visualize them in the camera, which is not easy to know what you want to say, not see the person, visualize them in the camera. it takes some practice to do that, to be able to stand in front of the camera and have all those skills ready to go, have that muscle memory in place so that you can really be present and focus on, you know, on getting this person excited. I mean, ideally, when you're in front of the camera, you're not thinking about where to look, right? You have trained yourself where to look. You're not thinking about, okay, I gotta envision someone. Okay, how do I do that? I gotta conjure this up. You're not, that's not a good place to record from, because that's, you're not going to have the best energy. You're going to be thinking about all these tactical things when you should be thinking about, you know, I want to share this with you. I want to get this person excited. Those are the, you know, in the moment sort of intentions we want to bring.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you train somebody on getting these skills and making it part of their muscle memory, making it unconscious competence and
Hmm.
not unconscious incompetence?
Confidence. Right, right. Yeah, you know, that's the thing. People have been doing it a little while now, and so we've seen a lot of bad habits sort of solidify, and that's, those are almost harder to break. Uh, so really, if you think about it, like as an actor, I learned the importance of getting your body prepared, right? Even though maybe you're just doing a headshot, it doesn't matter. Your body supports everything that you're doing, everything you're saying, and it's really important to be in a not completely relax, but a lose that negative tension, right? There's always some amount of tension that we want to bring. If you get rid of all tension, you're just like a, you know, a empty bag, right? So you don't want to get rid of everything, but you want to get rid of the negative tension that may keep you, you know, bring those shoulders up and make you feel really tense, and you know, and then that starts affecting your mind, and it's just a bad place to be in. So getting rid of that physically, physicalizing, doing some warm-ups, making sure you're, you know, releasing that energy. If you were backstage or before a shoot with a bunch of actors and they were, you know, waiting to go on and do their scene, they're likely not just sitting there very quietly, right? They're shaking things out. They're keeping that energy moving and loose so that it doesn't start to, you know, shut down your system. And because that's what's happened. If we're a little bit nervous, we start to get very stiff and then very self-conscious of what we're doing, and we want to eliminate that. So that
Mm.
physical release is very important, and then getting to your best energy state. A lot of times people start off, and maybe you've seen this stuff, and they start off the video, and it's just, you know, it's not too engaging, and they're kind of, you know, low key. They're finding their way, right? They're finding their way, and then about, I don't know, 30 seconds in or a minute in, they really hit their stride, and it's too late. And I've heard you talk about that. You know, you've got to be at that high energy place before you turn that camera on. You do not have the luxury of taking time to build to that. You're basically warming up on your audience at that point.
Right. So give me an example exercise that you do to warm up and get into a peak energy state.
Sure, sure. So I have like a really quick 7 minute warm up that, you know, everybody has 7 minutes, right? And first of all, it's going through and kind of releasing that tension in in your body. So finding those areas that may be tense, like you know, a lot of people carry tension in their shoulders, and just doing a quick, like, you know, full body check, like you know, okay, bringing your shoulders up to your ears, holding really tight for 10 seconds, and then releasing, right? And doesn't that feel good?
Right. Yep.
And just going through with your you know, your fists, and then your stomach and your legs and your feet and your face, scrunching your face up. And so releasing all that, you know, stretching, whatever you need to do to get loose. And then some breathing exercises help, some, you know, taking some deep breaths, and then doing some energy builders. So whatever you can do, run in place, jumping jacks, just, you know, get that energy up physically so that you can bring it, you know, through the camera. And then we have to work on our vocal. A lot of times people, I remember being sales, and I would get up and call a customer before, and I'd even said a word to anyone, right? My first words would be, "Hey, how are you?" Like that's not in peak performance shape, right? We want to warm up those vocal cords too, so that everything is just flowing. It's like you're at your peak performance level during the day. So that's how you really want to show up.
Mm. One exercise I do that I find really life enhancing, as well as just getting into a peak state for a performance or um, really anything, client or prospect meeting, is it's a toroidal field exercise. I learned this from Tina Zion, who mentors me, and we work on things like medical intuition and stuff. Pretty woo woo, but
Wow.
that's just an amazing exercise. I think I went through it with her on the interview I did of her on my other podcast on Get Yourself Optimized. So I'll include that in the show notes. But
Yeah.
I'll just share this briefly because it's so fast and so powerful, and I think that energy will actually come through for our listener who isn't watching this video, as well as folks who are watching the video. Of course, I think they'll see the energy shift. So let's try it for a second, and
Okay. Yeah. I'm excited.
it's really simple. You have four different energies that you're bringing in from the ground, from your bottoms of your feet, drawing up from the earth, and then it's filling up your body and kind of spilling over, exploding out the crown chakra, the top of your head, like a fountain, and
Mhm.
also out your fingertips. And you may only have to do this a few times. You could have all four energies come through at the same time, or you could visualize one at a time. So the four energies are rainbow light, angelic golden light, diamond like sparkles, and violet flame. Okay, so let's try it.
Wow. Okay. I
Here,
like all of them.
okay, so just with each breath in through the nose, you're going to drop that energy, and it's going to fill up and spill out through your crown chakra and everything. Okay, here
Okay.
we
So
go.
drawing it up through the ground.
Through the ground. All right. So I'm kind of buzzing. I don't know about you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that breath work is definitely helpful in creating that energy, but that's a great visual. Because really you are engaging the whole body, right? So I like that the
Yeah.
flow of that, and in just envisioning that and physicalizing sort of that energy coming through your body and releasing. That's
Yeah.
great. I actually feel good.
Yeah. So
That's
you
fun. I'm
said
gonna
earlier everybody's got 7 minutes. Well, if you forgot to warm up and you have 10 seconds
right.
before
Just
the
doing one of
camera
those.
turns on, you have 3 or 4 seconds to do a few deep
Right,
breaths like
right.
that. And it's important to visualize that energy uh, being drawn up from the earth and into and through your body, so that it's not just a breathing exercise. It's actually a very powerful
Hmm.
energetic exercise.
Yeah, I love that. I'm going to play with that. And
Yeah,
energy is so important on video, and I think we don't talk about that enough. I think there's a misconception that, you know, not a misconception, but the idea is we want to just, be ourselves, right? Well, I want to be myself. And we just want to be natural. And I hear that all the time. Like, I don't hear about acting. I want to be myself. And that's
yeah,
great. Like, I don't want you to be someone you're not. Even when you're acting, you're using parts of yourself to bring to this role. But what happens is when people say they want to be natural, they get into this very comfortable state, right? And their energy goes down, and then there's the danger of we're at home and we're sitting in our comfortable chair, and that kind of energy just does not read well on camera, right?
yeah,
It looks like you're not interested. Yes, you're very natural, but you actually have to bring more energy to the camera. And you probably heard the expression, I don't know if you believe this, but the camera adds 10 pounds, right?
Yes, and it also flattens your energy.
And it
It is
flattens
a
your energy.
two-dimensional medium, so you're going from 3 dimensions to two, and you need to up your energy to
Right.
match
Right.
that
And
lower level. Yeah,
and a lot of people don't believe that or don't know that, and so they think because this camera is right in front of them that they can just be very low energy. You can still be very, yourself, but we want to see you at your height, at a heightened state, right? Not you
yeah,
that's like sitting back channel surfing. That's not the energy you want to bring to video, because that will
right.
not come across to your audience.
Be your
um,
best self, not just yourself.
Right. Like what is you at, when you're seated across from someone and you're talking about something you're really passionate about and they're passionate about, what does that look like? What does that feel like? And getting that sense memory in your body of like what that feels like when you're really, you know, I call it second date energy. It's like, because first dates, it's too chaotic, right? That's not the energy you want to bring. But second date, where you're really excited about this person and you want to be your best and you really want to learn about them, that's the kind of energy you want to bring to video.
Mm. Right. So how does someone uh, I hate this expression, fake it till they make it, but act as if they're not feeling it, if they are nervous, if they are self-conscious and they're uh, doubting themselves, maybe they don't feel that natural. How do you
Hmm.
get them to get in that best self state when they know they're being watched and judged?
Right, right. Well, I think part of it is mental, part of it is physical, and part of it is just preparation. So first of all, understanding that no one is going to judge us harsher than we do, likely. Most people are just hypercritical of themselves on video, and they're
Yeah.
critical of things that don't necessarily matter to your audience. Like, oh gosh, why does my eyebrow do that funny thing? And they fixate on these small details that isn't what the isn't what the video is about. It's not, they're the customer is having a much different impression. So it's kind of understanding that again, we don't have to be perfect, right? That's a goal that is unattainable, and it's not always desirable. Nobody, we it's a hard time connecting with people that are perfect. So we bring our humanness to the table, but um, also, learning to be comfortable with that camera. And I always take people through an exercise, even if they've been working with their camera for a while, where you start off just really talking to your camera. Just turn your camera on a couple minutes a day and just, have a conversation with it. I would say you have to make friends with your camera, because the camera is because right now people have a very, stressful relationship with their camera. It's like, oh, I got to turn the camera on.
It,
And
yeah, when you're talking about this, it reminds me of the movie Amelie, and
oh yeah.
she brings this little gnome, this little garden gnome, to all these destinations and takes photos with it,
Oh
or
yeah,
of it,
that's right.
and so make friends with your camera, take it on
Right, right. Make
dates,
friends with
take
your
it,
gnome. Yeah.
yeah, take it on outings,
Right, right. No, seriously,
tuck it
it's like
tuck it in bed at night.
yeah, right. Because what happens is we only practice these things when we get on an important call or we're recording something. That's not when you need to practice. You need to practice, leading up to this, and just, get comfortable. Just, hey, camera, this feels really stupid, but let me tell you about my day, right? And then the next day you do a little more.
Yeah.
And because the camera is the lens through which your customer sees you, right? So you need it to be on your side. You need it to be your friend, your champion, not your enemy. Because whatever, say that, the camera's a lie detector. It will pick up whatever's going on with you. So if you're nervous, if you're anxious, if you're uncomfortable, the your customer won't necessarily know exactly what's going on. They might, it might be that visible, but they'll know something is off. right? And
Mm.
something will be incongruent. Your body will not lie, right? Your face will not lie. And that's when I hear people say things on video like, this is going to save you $1 million. And it's like, I'm looking at their face. I'm like, well, is that good news or bad news? I mean, if I didn't know from the words, I would have a hard time telling from your body.
Right.
Um, so to find that congruency, to create that natural ability to just be present, you have to practice these things off camera. So getting comfortable with that camera is really that first start, and then
Now, are you
understanding.
looking at the camera or are you looking past the camera?
Looking at the camera, looking
Got
at
it.
the camera. Is that advice you heard, to look past the camera? As
Well,
far as
I heard that when you're on a TV appearance, you don't want to look directly at the camera. The people get weirded out who are in the audience, at the
okay,
other end watching you on TV. And you can look beyond the camera, just don't look directly into the camera.
so
It's
that's and
that
yeah,
what is
yeah.
that
So
fourth wall? You don't want
right,
breaks
right.
that
So I
fourth
talked
wall.
about it. So breaking the fourth wall, and you're right. TV is a very different animal. So depending on what they're going for, if there's other people on set, and yeah, you as an actor, if you look at the camera, they're like, cut, right? You just ruined the scene. Thank you. Unless that's something that's a technique, and you see that in a lot of shows. House of Cards, The Office, where they'll actually turn and look at the camera and speak directly to it. And that is that breaking the fourth wall, with the camera or the stage being the fourth wall. And it's very compelling, right? The reason they don't want you to do it, because it is so powerful. And that just shows you the power of making direct eye contact through the camera. If you are if you are speaking to an audience, as a marketer, and you're doing a recording, you definitely want to look at the camera, because those are the eyes of your audience.
Mm.
But yeah, TV, depending on what their goals are, that may be, you may have a little different instruction on that.
Got it. Got it. And then what sort of body language tips do you want to share in terms of use of your hands and
Mhm.
body positioning? How do you do you maybe turn at an angle and then cheat back, looking back at the camera, but your body is slightly at an angle? Any kind of body language tips you'd like to share with our listener?
Sure, sure. Well, there's a couple different ways to approach it. I think, certainly if you're seated, which is where a lot of video is taking place, wherever you are, you want to make sure you're framed well, right? And typically that means, you're in the center of the frame. There's about a fistful of space between you and the top of the frame and your head. And you want it, I mean, the goal is to make it easy for people to see your face, to see your eyes in particular, and your expression. So frame yourself in a way that's easy for them to see. And also being aware of the spatial differences between you and your audience. And of course, if you're too close, especially if someone's watching you on their screen, you have to remember people are about 12 inches away from their screen. That's going to feel a little aggressive, right? So having that proper distance between you and your camera, and staying behind what I call this pane of glass, because
Hmm.
anything, as you put closer to the camera, is going to appear very large, and that takes our attention. Anything that is distracting or unusual, that gives your customer, your audience, chance to kind of get away from your message and go, wow, I wonder if she really has, her hands are that big. Right? So you don't want them focusing on those kind of things. Making sure you're seated, you know up, straight from the spine up, your head in line, and then hinging forward ever so slightly, like about 10 to 15%. That looks like you're very engaged. Like, you don't want to be, too far. But it's when people lean back, it's like, that does not immediately say, I'm interested in you. So it's kind of that, I'm on at the edge of my seat. I can't wait to hear what you have to say. That kind
Mm.
of that kind of
Yeah.
look.
Yeah.
And then it's in terms of body language, this is another thing that we need to practice is, we have to be aware of our frame, right? And if we are going to gesture to try and keep things within that frame as much as possible, the camera doesn't like fast, quick, big movements. That's very distracting. So you want to keep your movements very slow and purposeful, and think about ways that you can support what you're saying with your hands. Like we're going to talk
Mhm.
about two things today. I might hold up two fingers. We're going to take your business from here, go over to the far left side of my screen, over to the far right. Those are the kind of things that you can support with your body.
Right.
So a lot of times people say, well, I don't use my hands on video because I don't know what to do with them. And I talk a lot with my hands in person. And what happens when we try not to use our hands is, for people that talk with their hands a lot, it often dampens their energy. So this advice to not use your hands is really damaging to, I think, a lot of people's performance, because that helps them speak. We want to rein it in a little bit, and we want to fine tune those movements, find places to support, with gestures, but not completely take those hands away, because that's part of how people communicate.
Right. And also, when someone is gesturing from left to right to show a timeline, right? So in the
Right.
beginning, or when we start
Remembering.
working together, X,
Uh-huh.
Y, and Z will happen, and then when we get to the end point, this is what you'd expect to receive. You got to remember that your image is going to be displayed not from left to
Reverse.
right, but from right to left. So you got to
Right.
actually start over on the other side,
Yes.
because people are looking at you from out there, and for them, your right is their left.
Exactly. I try not to be that specific, because I have to think about it too much, so it
Yeah.
hurts
Well,
my
that's
head.
where you're getting to that
You're right.
unconscious competence. After conscious
Right.
competence, there's that next level of unconscious competence that's just in your body, in your muscle memory. You're just doing that every
Mhm.
time you're on stage, you're in front of a camera.
Yep.
It's like you've flipped into mirror image mode.
Yeah, those are the things you don't want to have to be focused on. That is not where your attention should be, absolutely. And
Yeah.
then, of course, when people are standing, that's a whole different body language, or opportunity for body language. And certainly when people are standing, you have more energy typically, because our energy does tend to sink a little bit when we sit down. However, I find when people are standing, they have the urge to walk towards the camera. Do you ever feel that way, Stefan?
Uh, no, not
No?
really.
You do a lot, but a lot of people, they'll be thinking, they want to, you want to connect with the person. It's just, you'll see this also when people see it, they'll lean towards the camera. It's like, so, right? They get excited, which is great. Um, and the problem is, if you start to walk, you really have nowhere to go, because the space between you and the camera is usually pretty tight, or you will be out of frame, or uh, you know take up too much of the frame very quickly, and then you have to walk backwards two steps, and so a lot of times you see this little shuffle. um,
Hmm.
if you're going to stand, you also have to really practice standing evenly on both feet, because most people don't, that's, even when I was teaching presentation skills, live presentation skills, it was very difficult for people to stand there and not shift from, foot to foot, because it's not something we do a lot. And so I always say, practice that. Practice when you're standing at line at Starbucks, like practice standing really still, weight evenly balanced on both feet. And until that just doesn't feel so unnatural, because otherwise what happens is, those movements are really magnified in the camera, and it can become a focal point for your audience. Like, they just, we get mesmerized by these patterns that people fall into.
Right. And one thing I learned from media training many years ago, I think it was probably 20 years ago, right before my first TV appearance, was if you're wearing a suit, this is probably most important if you're, let's say, on TV and you're in a studio and you're wearing a suit. You don't want to have that suit look
Too
not crumpled, but just not
baggy.
centered on your body. So you
Oh,
sit on the suit tails. and that
Mm.
helps bring the suit a little bit back so it's on your
Mhm.
shoulders and not it doesn't look like it's kind of not fitting properly, and it just looks really good on camera. So that's something that I learned 20 some years ago. I'm curious to hear what sort of other tips related to appearance, especially if it's a high stakes video situation, you might share, and maybe even just generally tips on what to wear for those kinds of
Sure, sure.
video opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a whole chapter in the book on, what to wear, what to do, hair, makeup, because again, it's not something, we are taught. But it's funny you say that 20 years ago that, sitting on the tail of your suit. And some of the tricks I learned are from way back, like clothespins are used a lot on commercials, and because the audience is only seeing the a certain part of your clothes, and so if it's ill fitting, they can put a little clothespin in the back so it fits well, and so it looks nice and clean. So those are great. You just have to remember they're there so you don't walk around with them the rest of the day. So those are a good little fix, or any kind of clip, right? But you have to be aware if you're going to turn sideways and you've got something clipped back there that people will see that.
Hmm.
In terms of clothes, what's interesting is most people are using video from the shoulder up. This is what I call medium close up, and what becomes of great importance is the neckline, right? Because you could have the most beautiful outfit on, it could be, thousands of dollars, but if the neckline is just a t-shirt, that's the impression you give across. It comes across as very casual. So it's all about the neckline on video, right? And the thing is that, you know, necklines create a certain impression, and collared necklines are obviously convey a more professional, conservative impression than a t-shirt neckline. And also knowing what neckline works best on you. Some people, if they're very broad shouldered, a very tight neckline, t-shirt neckline makes them, look even broader. Oftentimes, a jewel neckline, which is just a little lower than that high t-shirt neckline, but not super low, is flattering for a lot of people. But thinking in terms of necklines, colors, textures, because that's, we just have very little to read. And I was always taught as an actor, anything that you wear or anything behind you is in fact there to support you. Like, it's the supporting background. It's not supposed to be the main show. Like, I don't want to just see your shirt. I don't want to be, you have such a loud shirt on that's all I'm looking at, right?
Yeah.
It should be something that brings your eyes out. Maybe contrasts with your background, so there's a nice differentiation, gives some depth to our visual. Those are the kind of things that you want to look for.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
But
So,
it's hard. You have to
uh,
go through your wardrobe and find, I pull out those things. Try, take an hour and just pull out all the things that you think might look good on camera. Get in front of the camera, take a screenshot, because a lot of things appear differently. Colors, do funny things. Stripes, you want to stay away from, stripes or tiny little patterns that do funny
right,
things with
because
you.
depending on the size of the window, the viewer's window, they might see a weird effect like a moire pattern, and it's just because you wore a striped or a checkered shirt or something that at
Right.
that particular size created that weird effect.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. Because you don't know what people are viewing your video on. So trying to be, as conservative in, what you wear in terms of wild patterns and things that, if you question whether something might be distracting, it probably is or could be
Yeah,
on someone's screen.
yeah. And don't wear green
Absolutely.
when you're using a green screen.
Yeah, right. Don't wear green with a green screen. That's right. And certain colors like reds are typically hard to get on video, just certain shades of red. They do funny things. Black takes away a lot of contrast. There's no, unless it's very well fitted, but otherwise, if you have something on black and it's fairly loose, it just looks like a bag. So
It
you have
doesn't
to
look
be very
flattering.
careful. Yeah. So be careful with that. And really bright whites can be tough. White underneath a jacket or something or sweater can be easier sometimes than just all white.
Hmm. And what about lighting? I presume that you're a fan of using good lighting.
I am. I am. Lighting is, there's a reason why TV crews and movie sets have a bunch of people on the payroll to do lighting because it's very tricky. And there's a lot of variables, time of day, because we're not working on most of us in a closed set, right? We're working in our office. We've got different times of day. We've got different lighting coming in. So we have to be prepared for different situations. And having some flexible lighting, having a good set of lights that you can move around, starting with, a ring light for most people, it can be at least a great first start.
Hmm.
And then adding some backlight or some key lights in front of you, depending on what your situation is. They're not hugely expensive, but they make such a big difference, especially if you're sending videos to customers. That the point is you want them to be able to see you, right? You want them to be able to see your face, to feel like they're sitting right across from you having a conversation. And if you're, shaded in any way or it's too difficult to make out your expression, or it's just weird lighting, you're not going to create that feeling. So it is very important.
Yeah, yeah. I've got some lighting I use here. It's one of the lights is where I'm pointing in front.
Hmm.
It's bouncing off of the wall and makes for a lighter, kind of softer effect rather than pointing directly at me, because then I have to have another light that counteracts the shadows that are
Right.
created. And this is a small home office, so I don't really have a lot of space to have multiple lights set up. I do have them. I just don't have them all set up.
Right, right. Yeah, we're working with what we have for the most part. And ideally, lighting technicians love that 3-point light system, which is like you said, you've got two lights sort of countering each other to the side, one sort of in front of you, and actually then a backlight, so more like four lights. But that's difficult to pull off in a small office and may not be necessary. Really, the best thing is natural light, right? Natural light is what lighting artists are trying to attain, right? It's the best possible light, but it's inconsistent and not always in the right spot at the right time. So you can use some of your natural light, just making sure you're in front of that natural light source and making sure it's not behind you, which is a big mistake I see a lot of people doing, because then,
Yeah.
you've got this bright light behind you. I'm sure you've talked to people and it's like you can't quite make out their face, and it really defeats the purpose.
Hmm. Do you do much video outdoors, or is it mostly indoors?
Mostly indoors because, I live in Colorado, so the weather's always variable. So that's a concern. But just in terms of, setting up the lighting, and that can be challenging. So you have a lot more control in an indoor environment, certainly.
Yeah. One thing I find distracting is when people use ring lights and they wear glasses, and I can see the ring through the reflection in their lenses.
Yes, that's an unfortunate side effect a lot of times. Sometimes that can be fixed with a larger ring light, so that the ring isn't, right in their glasses. But typically with ring lights, yes, that's tough. Glasses are a challenge, with even with regular lighting, and so you have to play with it to kind of do the tilt them to try not to get the glare, tilt the lights. Yeah, it's tricky, and if you don't need them, it's great if you don't have to use them during the video, but I know that's not always the case for everybody.
Right. Yeah. So if someone is shooting outdoors, it pretty much requires having a lapel mic or a boom mic with a windscreen on it so that you're not catching a lot of the wind while you're
Hmm.
talking. So do you have
Right.
any recommendations around microphones, both for indoors and outdoors, of course? So yeah, I'd love to hear what your recommendations are around microphones.
Sure, sure. Yeah, there's a lot of good choices now. It just kind of depends on your budget and your needs. But the Blue Yeti is a great microphone, and I know there's some competitors to that, but I think that's very been a very consistently good microphone for a long time. I have a big office, and so the sound can really reverberate with the walls, and that's a lot of us aren't, our homes aren't designed to be a sound studio or recording studio, right? So we often need a screen around our microphone to dull some of that room noise, right? And so I use what's called I could read the name here, Chaotica Eyeball is called. And what it is, I'll show you here, is it goes on top of your microphone.
Okay, so your audio doesn't sound so great when you take
No,
the when you show us the microphone. So
no,
maybe
right. I
restate
need the
that.
microphone, but it goes on top of your microphone, and that way uh, it reduces some of that exterior noise and that bouncing around that happens when you're in a larger room.
Hmm. Yeah.
So,
One thing I find really annoying is somebody is using the microphone that's built into their iPhone earbuds. And if it's a wired uh, earbud, then it scrapes against their hair or scrapes against
mm,
their outfit, and that makes this scratchy noise throughout the whole conversation. It's super distracting, and they have no idea that they're doing that.
well, that's
Yeah.
that's one of the biggest problems with video is that people have a sort of lack of awareness about how they're coming across to their audience on their screen.
Hmm.
And all those, all like you said, the sounds are magnified, the visual distractions can be magnified. And when we're unaware of that, we're just, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. We could be doing a great video, but we're doing some things that distract our audience and are really taking away from our message and our goal of connecting with
Right.
our audience.
Yeah. Yeah. So with the lapel mic, especially if you're wearing that and your hair is interacting with the lapel mic, that's going to create this scratchy noise that's going to be super distracting and annoying. So get your hair out of the way so it doesn't touch the lapel mic. And do you oftentimes recommend to clients that they wear a lapel mic, or is it usually just let's say a podcast mic? My podcast mic is very prominent in the frame here. If you're watching this on video, I don't care about that. I care about the sound quality much more. And so this
Hmm.
Shure SM7B microphone is top of the line as far as
Oh
podcast
yeah, those
mics
are
are
good.
concerned. But it's not for everybody. So if you don't want to have the microphone in the frame with you, then a podcast mic is probably not the right thing for you. And you might want to wear a lapel mic, or you might want to have a boom mic attached to a DSLR camera that's connected
Hmm.
to your computer through um, and what's that called? Elgato. I forget the name of the device that allows you to take a HDMI connection and turn it into a USB or
Oh,
USB-C
right,
connection.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Anyways, I'll look it up after and we'll put it in the show notes. But that sort of stuff is really helpful to get that figured out. Maybe with the professional, somebody gives you some setup training so you get your home office video studio in top shape. I worked with a guy named Yoni who was very helpful in uh, pointing me to the right equipment to buy, the right lighting, and uh, a green screen that's retractable that I can quickly just push down, and I can get it out of the way if I want. But
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm curious if you have on your website some sort of cheat sheet or buyer's guide of some of your favorite equipment.
I do have a resource guide, and yeah, and you're welcome to reach out to me. Or I could actually post it on the show notes
Oh,
of
that'd
it.
be great. Yeah, if you send
Yeah,
that to me, I'll include that.
yeah.
And also, if somebody wants to work with you, get coaching from you, training from you, or take your courses, how do they get in touch? Also, how do they follow you and learn from you on social media and all that?
Sure, sure. So you can get in touch with me at Julie at acting for sales, FORSALES.com. I have tons of videos and blog posts on all of these issues, how to look at the camera, how to use your body, how to be expressive and get over your nerves at juliehansen.live. And yeah, so those are great places to start. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always posting videos and tips on there as well. And yeah, I'd love to hear what your challenges are. And if you do have a challenge, I encourage you to look through the book. Just look through the table of contents on Amazon. At Look Me in the Eye, using video to build relationships with customers, because you'll see it's very detailed. So if you've had a question about video, we talked about, where do you look, what do you wear, how do you stand, how do you use your body, all kinds of things. It's probably in there because I tried to answer questions of thousands of sales and marketers over the past year in that book.
Awesome. Yep. Well, we'll for sure include a link in the show notes to the book.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Julie. And thank you, listener, viewer as well. And get out there, make it a great day, and share your light with the world.
Yeah. Make friends with your camera.
Okay, awesome. That's great advice, too. This is Stephan Spencer, your host, signing off.